Hail, hail, Celtic Star here, and what the hell do we care now? It was Celtic 3, Aberdeen 1 at the weekend. We had some teams, we had some goals, we had some decisives, and again, right after it, we're talking straight away about transfers, all the ins and outs and everything else in between. Back again for the Sorare CSC, I'm Quinny, and I'm joined this week again, obviously, by Etienne23 and McBride Ace. Guys, good to see you. Hail, hail.
Nice to see you, Quinny.
Hail, hail. How you all doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's one of those ones where the Aberdeen fixture, we knew right off the bat, it's going to be the second game of the season. Away to Pittodrie is not a game that we fancy, but we would hope we would keep on the winning start to the season. And, you know, we definitely did that. There's no two ways about it. But the game wasn't quite a one-way affair or like a dominant performance or one that really won all the fans over. There's a lot of talking points coming out of it, a lot of dividing opinions. But one or two, which I'm sure we'll get stuck into. But, guys, we beat them 3-1. I guess I'll start with you, Sean. What did you make of the game?
Yeah, it was a fun game, really entertaining. I think we spoke on the last Sorare Supporters Club about Celtic Sorare Supporters Club about the defence wasn't really somewhere that we wanted to be selecting a lot of cards, and I think that was pretty obvious quite early on. But, you know, that Matt O'Reilly, the front three, Turnbull was terrible, actually. But yeah, there's just so much value in those Celtic attacking players because just the amount of danger. And the one thing I liked was lots of opportunities and space for like a midfielder. Stuart Armstrong used to do this all the time with Brendan Rodgers, where they would just be running between their defence and midfield, and there'd just be so many players, so many options of doing damage. So it's fun going forward, but defensively really poor. And I think that the kind of the dampener on it, I think, was how exposed Callum McGregor looked. And Callum McGregor's one of my favourite players, but I think we kind of seen how it will be tough in Europe to keep running with that McGregor as the number 6 or the single pivot or whatever term I can use to offend purists. But yeah, it was okay. It was okay. Carter Vickers coming off wasn't good for us in the Sorare context. But yeah, and a lot of missed chances as well, which obviously hurts us in the SO5. But 3-1 away to Pittodrie is obviously in the context of just, you know, performing and winning the league. It's pretty good. And it was fun. It was a very fun match, and I like the look of Aberdeen. I think they look like they've got a coherent strategy. And they really played quite well against us and made for a really exciting, fun match to watch, which sometimes with Celtic games domestically, it can just be a war of attrition for the opposition.
As we come to you, McBride, Jordan Larson has just scored in the first minute.
Yeah, I know. I was just looking at that myself. Just looking at myself, Larson.
In the words of the great Rod Stewart, Celtic fan and Conservative Tory party member, some guys have all the luck. It's certainly not me.
What can I say? Back to the game. Thought it was really good performance overall. Enjoyed the game too. Starting with Aberdeen, thought they were really dangerous. You know, I think like looking at guys there like Duke, you know, I can see like why would he not be somebody the likes of us would be interested in. I thought he was excellent. Worked really hard, caused us loads of issues as well. Aberdeen have got the makings of a really good team. I think they're still a bit of a project just now because obviously there's certain areas where they're just bringing in like a left-sided player and Johnny Hayes was out and all that type of stuff. But I thought it was a good game. From our point of view, I think like, you know, Turnbull struggled a bit, so I don't think that midfield worked quite as well. Obviously away from home as it did first game against Ross County, and I thought he was pretty poor overall, and then I wasn't really surprised he was taking off at half time, obviously on a card as well, but I just think he really played that well overall. But really good attacking performance. I think we looked really dangerous. Even like, you know, Maeda looks to really be enjoying this system we're playing just now. He was any sort of counter attacks, etc. He looked really dangerous. So it was good. And you know, I suppose when the 1-1 went in, if we didn't get gifted that goal, which Furu took really well, it could have been a lot more difficult. But given how difficult the fixture is and how well Aberdeen have been doing overall the last sort of 14, 15 games, I think that's a huge win early on in the season, getting that game out of the way and early on in the sort of team's progression. But I thought Navrocki was pretty good again, but also, that he get caught wrong side of the guy for the goal. So it's already been good on the ball, but people maybe forget a wee bit how good Starfelt was in terms of actual defending. So there's still a bit of work to be done there, I think, but still 2 weeks of the window to go, probably be more incomings and outgoings and stuff. But I really enjoyed the game. I thought it was excellent. It was a really good game. Aberdeen gave it a good go, and get the win was really good as well, and nearly exploded when Matt Riley scored, because that was huge for me, obviously, as always. Totally captained them absolutely everywhere, so that was a big sort of moment for me, and seeing him staying on for the full game as well was a really huge plus point as well, because that's helping his scores a lot as well in terms of the old fantasy football.
Yeah, for sure. And Matt O'Reilly, like you guys have both mentioned in that kind of opening salvo, the top scorer on the day. He was definitely the best player on the pitch when you watched the match as well, clearly. And the front three, did their bits, didn't they, overall? But I think, the Aberdeen goal, Navrocki definitely falls asleep on Miovski, who comes in behind him. But, I do think, if I can say, some teams are just going to do that to you. Some teams will just get a chance to score a goal sometimes, and it's about, the whole team being switched on to it, and being further up or being more sensitive to it, because it's like 2 passes and then that chance is on, if you know what I mean. So there's not much ground everyone can cover in the space of 2 passes. The ball travels much faster than people, if you know what I mean. So it's a bit of a positional thing as well as, you can't teleport, is my point, but yeah. That's all I wanted to say on that kind of one. It was a decent enough goal kind of thing as well. They've caught some space, they've ran at it, they were strong, they took their chance.
Yeah, Duke's a good player. I mean, I actually give some credit here as well. Sometimes people maybe sort of downgrade players who are just playing in Scotland and all that type of thing. But I'm pretty surprised Aberdeen have still got Duke at the moment. I know the window's still ongoing, so who knows where he could end up. He end up in Saudi Arabia, he could end up in Turkey, MLS, he could, whatever. But he does look like a good player, and also we've seen lots of players that have looked like good players and flattered to deceive and all that type of stuff. But I think it looks as if he's got quite a good work ethic as well. So sort of plays within Aberdeen's system, and he's not obviously hitting Maeda heights in terms of pressing and everything. But I think he's all around. He's a talented player. So it's interesting to see. And I hope Aberdeen, if he doesn't come to somebody like Celtic, then Aberdeen keep him. And they have a good go at the Europa League or the Conference.
Yeah. One of the other standout scores we've seen in this game, guys, is Joe Hart is pushing a 50.
Joe Hart wasn't bad, actually. There was some hysteria on Twitter about him, obviously, when he conceded that goal. But generally was okay. There was definitely a smother as well. Did he get a smother? Yeah. Keep goalkeeper smother. Yeah, it was fine. Joe Hart was fine in that game. I'm not his biggest fan. I think we need to upgrade that position, but in that particular game, he played quite well, and that shows it. I didn't know he got near a 50. I love a goalkeeper smother. 5 points. It's just beautiful.
I'm pretty sure he done 2 of them, by the way, right at the end of the game. He had 1 and then he went to 0, and then when I checked that there, I was actually surprised to see it went back to 1.
Still too subjective, isn't it? Some of the Opta stuff is still way too subjective. You watch things and you go, that was definitely a keeper smother or a sweeper keeper, and it just. I'm trying to remember what was the 3 big chances missed. I know that one at the end, but they clearly went back and gave Maeda another big chance missed.
There was one right in amongst it all in the first half, for sure. There was one that happened quite quickly because they got up to 70, or he got good AA quite quickly, and I think it happened right on cue, because I was telling somebody, I'm like, normally Celtic last year we would have a bunch of big chances missed, and then I can't remember how it all kind of happened, but I'm pretty sure it happened quite quickly. And then the third one definitely escapes me as well. But he was on for a huge score. If he doesn't get those 2, even if he only gets 1 BCM, you give a striker that, it's an extra 10 points. 80 from one decisive is mega. And he was really impressive, Maeda. He was mad busy on that left wing, on the ball and off the ball, which was great.
Yeah, he's definitely a player that Rodgers is going to use properly, for sure. Just a fun player. Just wish he would be a bit more tidy when it comes to that one at the end. He's got to be more aware. He's got to just cut that back for whoever was there for a tap in. It's just those kind of mistakes can really cost you, and against better teams.
Odenholm was quite tidy as well when he came on. I was quite impressed with him. He looked quite nippy. And like when you looked at the analysis of him when he came into the team, he did look like a mini Hatate in terms of the areas of the pitch he likes to cover and his sort of like numbers and style of play. And like when he came on for Hatate, like, you know, like he really did just fit into that job quite quickly, didn't he? And a really tough game. And I know we were winning and all the rest of it, but like, you know, I thought he did pretty well and a good game from him from the bench.
Yeah. I've not seen a lot of him, to be honest. He's the player that just need to see more of, need to see more minutes. I don't really understand why Callum McGregor had to play another 90 minutes. I'm getting a bit confused by that. Obviously, it's good for people in Sorare that have got him, but just looked like he was getting ran ragged in a lot of transitions, and I just don't think we need a captain to be a captain on the pitch for 90 minutes. Just looks like Scott Brown era stuff again. Players aren't getting any younger, so
yeah.
And you're just watching Iwata on the bench, and you're thinking Iwata solves so many of those problems, but is Iwata ever going to play? Probably not, because Callum McGregor's never not going to play. So why was Iwata signed? What was the plan? You know, you're just wasting a perfectly good player, you know, prime years just sitting on the bench. And people will say, oh, if he was good enough, he'd play. But really, I mean, he's competing for one spot, and that spot is the one player that's never going to be dropped, ever. And that one player's never going to not play full 90 minutes, ever. So, you know, if we don't go to a 4-2-3-1 or whatever, then I don't see the point of Iwata. And I hope that he'll go back to Japan so I can use his card, because I've got many Iwata cards. So I'm very bitter about this.
And McBride, you were saying how much you loved the O'Reilly goal, but Yang's assist was pretty tidy. And again, similar to Odenholm, on paper and, you know, heat maps and all that stuff, and the lazy comparisons that we got from Japan anyway was that Yang is kind of like Jota in terms of the way he plays, and that assist and the little impacts of play he's had. I'm not saying he's as good as the guy, but he does the step overs, he does the little shimmies, he buys a yard, he puts a ball in, and he looked pretty tidy as well. Really good assist for O'Reilly. So he's come on a wee bit as well.
Yeah.
He came from a poor team as well. I mean, sometimes you look at these stats, and when you actually put somebody into a team that are better on the ball and more attacking, and you'll get into more attacking areas, it's a lot better, you know. Because I mean, like even with Jota, I think he went on loan to somebody like Valladolid or something. I can't remember exactly who it was, but he wasn't really doing that well, even in sort of Spain or whatever, wherever he was. And then he came to us, and he actually comes to a team that's on the front foot, giving them the ball, getting them the ball in the right areas. It makes a huge difference. So Yang could be a real dark horse, I think, because it looks as if the ability is definitely there. And even if he is more of a sort of impact player, as obviously Mark Patrick Rea was describing Haksabanovic and stuff, but even if he is at the moment, then, you know, that seems okay, because he's a young guy, he's come over, he seems to be quite keen, and he's shown some ability, as did Home as well. I thought he looked quite impressive, and it's quite good to have guys like that who can come on and kind of, you know, change a game a wee bit at the end, you know, because we mentioned Turnbull earlier, and he just looked a wee bit kind of slow on the ball and stuff like that, and that works when you're playing at home and everything's all in front of you and all that type of stuff. But these guys look maybe a wee bit more dynamic, and it's nice to have all those different options, even when teams maybe get a wee bit more tired or whatever. And a great assist, I mean, great back play, great assist. Matt O'Reilly obviously put it away, which was, I think, deserved on his performance as well.
Yep. Yeah, definitely good player. Looks good. Does what he needs to do. And he's, I think his counter pressures or something like that was pretty decent in Korea for a player that played for a very, very poor team in Gangwon. So I think he makes some of the most sense of some of the signings we've made. He makes, the most sense, I think. And yeah, he was good against Bilbao as well. When he came on against Bilbao, he was very good. Yeah. And me and my friend watched him. We were quite close to the front and just got a good look at him, and he looks like he's got a lot to offer. So I'm happy with Yang for sure. And he's going to be a good card to get once the the new 23-24 season cards come out and he's got a wee Celtic kit on, we can get a wee JPEG card with him on it. I'm sure we'll all be clamouring to get that. What season's shirt
Definitely
number? 13, something like that.
13.
Yeah. So we'll all be racing for that. The oligarchs will be battling it out to get that. Yeah, but no,
Golden Home 15. The new Bobby Pettit.
Yeah, I've bought them now. I actually bought, even though it's probably not the optimal card because there's a forward card as well, but I bought the rookie card. I just thought it looked really good, and also it was only 48 quid for a rare, which I mean people pay more money for limited cards. I just thought that was pretty outstanding value when you see he's not going to be a Matt O'Reilly type card or whatever, but Matt O'Reilly's went from like 125 quid about 3 months ago to auctioning for like 550 or whatever now. So you see there is a lot of potential, obviously, with the Celtic cards that if somebody gets in and they're scoring regularly, that people obviously want them to be part of the dominant Celtic stacks, with St Johnstone up next at home, who have been absolutely terrible so far. So I am planning a huge bevy session that day.
We love those games when it does look like we're going to run somebody over 5 or 6-0. Definitely be booking the day off, as it were, for that one, and it'll be a good one for the teams coming out. Love a bit of that.
What we're going to have more of? Am I going to drink more Guinness, or is there going to be more decisives? We should do an under over.
Pierre, could be a drinking contest, games like that, by the way. We do have a cup game, which doesn't obviously bother us, but that's this weekend, and kind of breaks up the run of form and momentum we're going to have. Now, there's a bit of transfer stuff knocking around now. The live chat, right, is throwing something out and is fighting over something quite ferociously that hasn't, I don't know if it's just somebody started a question or something or whatever, but I'll throw this at you, along with the other things that we were kind of laughing about and praying to God that isn't true earlier on, is the first ones that we heard earlier, which was just like no chance and no way in hell, was Eric Dyer and Ryan Fraser. And then what the live chat is nipping and going mad about is the potential for Kyogo to go to Spurs after the weekend's performances and whatever. So I'm not really too sure where this came from. If it's just the chat going mental and having a fight over it or something.
These chats online are reasonable. People are dead reasonable in chats online, especially YouTube comments and Twitter. Just dead reasonable, logical back and forths.
Yeah, exactly. So who knows? It's the origin, but so who knows what it is? On those kind of three things, guys, like the Dyer and I guess we can put Dyer and Fraser perhaps in the one bucket, is the sort of transfer speculation is linked. When you listen and you pay attention to all the kind of stuff that kind of goes on around Celtic, like fan media and in the no accounts and different even interviews with the manager and members of staff at the club, like players and whatever, you get this real sense that the transfer policy now is really firmly a one in, one out. Starfelt leaves, goes to Celta Vigo. Lager Bielke is basically in, like, not too sharp around that, and obviously Navracci just came in right beforehand as well. So with them saying like Ryan Fraser or Eric Dyer, is there someone else maybe going to leave? In those positions, I don't think there is. So I don't think those, as far as that whole one in, one out policy thing goes, I don't think they go anywhere anyway. But that even aside, in terms of profile and the individuals in question, are these guys we should even be considering? For me, it's a no and a no.
Well, there's clearly a homegrown problem with Celtic's registration for the Champions League. I think they need to fill some slots on that. So I would assume Ryan Fraser is the solution, that a bunch of geniuses in that esteemed boardroom where you can only get in there if your name's Lowell or Desmond or your pals of the family. So I'm sure that's what they've come up with. But I think it's homegrown player issue with Fraser probably. And Dier, I don't think there's anything in Dier. That just seems like a colossal waste of money, doesn't it? Don't think we need him for any. It doesn't really improve his. Really, I mean, well, he would, but for what purpose? What reason? We're trying to keep incrementally getting better and going on that trajectory. I don't really see a Dier doing much, and Ryan Fraser, I don't really know where he fits in. I don't really know the plan. If those players are legitimate targets, I'm lost. I don't know what the plan is at that point. because it seemed to be reasonably coherent with some real weird stuff like James McCarthy and even Aaron Moy, who came in and did well for his last season of professional football, but he actually retired. You know, we signed a player that was on the brink of his body completely being done with football, which is pretty risky. He done brilliantly, testament to his technical ability. But my God, that's a pretty crazy risk. And we've seen it fail with James McCarthy, who was kind of similarly, been injured for a few years and not really been hitting the heights. But yeah, I don't know. If those are legitimate targets, Quinny, McBride's, I don't know what's really the plan. Kind of seems to be veering off slightly.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of this stuff just clickbait or paper talk. We've been linked with McTominay. We've been linked with Kieran Tierney. Eric Dyer obviously might make sense from a media point of view because Spurs have been signing defenders, etc. And Ange is obviously trying to move guys on. Fraser's available on a free. So, I mean, obviously we have taken in James McCarthy before and given him a long deal, and he's just been completely and utterly useless. So Ryan Fraser used to be a good player at one point, probably 3 or 4 years ago or 5 years ago or whatever, but I don't know. I mean, he's a guy who's just really struggled to get a decent club after. Remember that spell where he was doing really well and he was linked to a big move and he was refusing to play or sign deals or whatever, and then the next minute
Under Eddie Howe.
He couldn't even get a
Under
club.
Eddie Howe.
Yeah.
That's why he's getting punished now, I believe, at Newcastle by Eddie Howe because of that stuff that happened at Bournemouth.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's came back to bite him.
I don't blame him. I really don't blame him. Other links, obviously, Furu is always going to be linked with a striker's position because he's one of the best sort of goal scorers around at the moment. I mean, his stats are really good. He's scoring goals live on Sky, all that type of stuff. So I'd be more surprised if he wasn't linked. I don't see that Celtic letting him go now after signing a new deal. So, but I can see why the links would come, obviously, with Kane going and being the manager. There's a couple other ones in the chat there. So I've been linked with Merlin at Nantes, and that's one that would fit more of our sort of recruitment strategy as well. So
he's in the 99th percentile for passing as a wing back, inverted full back, or I can't forget what the other full back, wing back role is, but his passing is elite. This Merlin guy, so maybe inverted full back would be his best position. So he would make sense. Also, it's funny. What's this? Michael Ross saying my painting in the background. Salvador Dali. Yes, I'm very surprised that you have noticed that I have that in the background. I just like his style, and you can get it on this TV. So yeah, I fancied a bit of Dali today, just because we live in a surreal time for Celtic, so there's a surreal image in the background.
Yeah, a lot of chat going on for the left back as well. And yeah, the Merlin one seems, again, I don't really know the origin of that, but that link seems to excite a lot of people because, again, in the Sorare space, we are very familiar with Quentin Merlin. He's been a bit of an AA demon for a little while, and he is a left back, but he's played, you can see very quickly, he's played everywhere across both sides of the pitch. Left mid, right back. I need to kind of filter all this so you can see it a bit clearer probably, but he plays everywhere and anywhere. He gets really good, he's really good dual success, tackles, interceptions, all that defensive stuff, as well as crossing. There's lots of penalty area entries and attempted assists and stuff, So he just
doesn't seem physically the kind of player that we would obviously want him to be. Obviously, we've struggled with Taylor being better at passing and things like that, and he really fit Postecoglou's inverted fullback role. I think Merlin would do that, but physically, I would say is where the weakness is with Merlin and the weakness with Taylor. So are we really improving that position? Probably, yeah, because this guy is elite when it comes to progressing the ball and passing the ball. But it's just one of those ones. It's like, again, I can't see the plan. I'm failing to see what type of player. It just seem to be a variety, a big mixture of players. Doesn't seem to be focusing on one stringent way of playing. And if you look at a lot of our European rivals of the same resources, they're just much more strategy. You know, Salzburg, it's just like, don't. You know why they've signed everyone they sign. With Celtic, you're always questioning it. You're always going, see, what? And that's the struggle. We're trying to judge these signings and how they'll come in. And I wanted to ask you guys, in terms of the homegrown player issue, you know, what players from Scotland would you guys sign? Because clearly we're not going to bring through any youth guys. They're not getting a sniff anytime soon with Ben Summers going to Dunfermline. So if Ben Summers isn't getting a sniff, who could we sign? Homegrown players that wouldn't be too costly, that would bolster the squad. There's a young guy, the right back from Motherwell. He's just went to Sturm Graz or whatever.
Yeah. There's
Do you
nobody
think
really
maybe sleeping?
St Mirren have got 2 or 3 guys I like. Is one of them called Tanser or something? I see left-sided actually. I don't know. St Mirren have got 2 or 3 guys that I thought have looked quite handy in the wide areas. Might even be the right side and the left side. I need to go and check their names out to tell you who I'm thinking of. But beyond that, in the league, you know, I don't really see that many players. I didn't even see the guy that's went to Sturm Graz, Max, whatever his name is. I didn't even see him play for Motherwell. I don't watch much Motherwell or anything. But these guys stood out for St Mirren when they played us a couple of times at the back end of the season, which is why I would say they would maybe do. But the league as a whole, Kilmarnock had a decent guy as well on the right wing. But again, he's not a young prospect. He's
showing your complete Celtic bias.
Is that good? You can't know his name.
So
I've asked anyone in Scotland who's buying for Celtic. No.
So with my opinion would then fall on, you just go back into the academy and dig deeper and just go and get these guys that are like going to Bayern Munich and are going to Liverpool and whatever, and just get them now and get them sewn up, because there is guys that make those moves as well that aren't in our academy that leave, you know. So there's still other academies around our place we could go shopping.
Yeah, Vata's qualified as homegrown, isn't he? So I don't know. I've not looked at the numbers and stuff there, but I'd find it hugely strange that would give Ben Summers a new deal and then would loan him out, and knowing that we've actually got some sort of problem with the Champions League. I think there's like, you get guys so you can register as B-listers or these different criteria, or whatever. But you know that we surely cannot have left ourselves in a position where we've sent out and loaned Ben Summers, and then we're going to have to sign Ryan Fraser on a big wage just to satisfy some sort of homegrown baloney criteria.
Like a very smart guy on Twitter. I forget his name, forget his handle, but he's always doing coefficients and things. And he put up a tweet that was kind of an overview of the squad, and I think there is some issue. Maybe there isn't. Maybe I've just made it up. But I think there is some issue with homegrown players, and we'll maybe need 1 or 2 or something to add to the 25, because it's quite a brutal selection process. The Champions League squad selection. You know, we'll have to leave players out. We'll have to leave players who will be in and around the first team out, I think. So we don't know who that'll be yet, but certainly I think Celtic could do a little bit better in Scotland with developing their own talent, but also, you know, getting some other guys that play in the Premiership through and into the squad.
Yeah. I would say on this kind of Ryan Fraser, Eric Dyer note as well, for me, like the money associated even to one side, they're just not I just don't want to see the club moving back into that kind of sphere, you know. Like we've even been linked with Mikel Antonio as well, and I'm sure Mikel Antonio would absolutely destroy the league up here. Get no doubt about it in my mind. But and even in Champions League, maybe he could score a couple of goals and maybe could be all right for us. But you know, there's no sell-on value. There's no progression in the club's kind of like economy.
It's
you know,
going, like, absolutely. It's just not going on an upward trajectory. It's
a pot. You know, it's in another Scott Sinclair situation where it's just then he goes for free down to somebody else because nobody will take him on mad wages. There's no transfer fee on the end of it, and now we're trying to compound successful transfers. You know, we've had a few kind of rolling and going, and it's these bad transfers. Like we had a bit of a speed bump under Ange with the James McCarthy, Ideguchi. You know, there was, you know, and Abel. You know, there's been missteps along the way, even in the last 2 or 3 years, and you know, all the concerns I think we have around transfers is we want to avoid all them as possible. We want the club to nail as many transfers as possible first time around and maximise the apparent war chest that we've got out there. So Eric
And
Dyer,
see-
for me, I don't think he's good enough for us to be spending any of that type of money on. If we are going to go for a big experienced guy, because he would have to replace Carter Vickers for me, like really in the team in terms of body and presence and whatever, if you're going to bring him in. So if you're going to get somebody that's in theory better than Carter Vickers at doing that job, then you don't go get Eric Dyer, you go get somebody better for the money.
Or go and get like Julian Draxler from PSG, who's apparently just go and do something like that and entertain people. Go, wow, if he actually decides that he wants to take football seriously again, we've got like an elite number 10. So like I don't know. Sometimes if we're going to make, I agree with the point, Quinny. If we're going to do that, make it someone exciting. Remember we were trying to get Rivaldo in a free. 2003, 2004, roughly, we're trying to get Rivaldo.
Yeah.
The excitement around that, and if you're going to commit, a certain amount of wages to someone like that, and you're not going to pay a transfer fee, make it exciting, make his dream. Someone that's just could rekindle like a one last bit of form. I think Draxler's only like 28, and he's definitely not. He'll go to Turkey or something like that, probably. We just want to keep moving forward and see if you're not going to spend all the money you've accumulated. Just go and expand Lennoxtown, go and expand the training facilities, go and build more parts to the youth academy, just invest in infrastructure, because I don't think we would be too disappointed if in 5-10 years from now we had 3-4 serious prospects through from the academy that were getting games. So do we have to always spend the money on transfers, or can we just spend it on infrastructure and get by just winning the league? And then maybe 10 years from now, we'll have a golden crop at the new 67, the new Lisbon Lions, all born within 20 miles of each other. I don't know. Just do something. Do something with it. Just don't hoard the money. It's the dumbest thing you can do as a football team, is just to have big piles of cash. And I'm citing Soccernomics in another book that details why you shouldn't do that.
Yeah. I can't, in the club's defence, we haven't actually signed any of those types yet. And you see all these rumours, and we see it with Saudi Arabia as well. Alisson's going to Saudi Arabia, Salah's going to Saudi Arabia. Like somebody's just going through my Sorare gallery and going, when do you want to have a heart attack? Is it today, tomorrow, next week? Sometimes you've got to look at these things and say, okay, one or two guys are going to bite the bullet and they're going to take all the money, but how many of them are actually going to go? And when I see all these EPL guys linked with Celtic and what wages and everything that they're on, I just think it's just not realistic. It's just clickbait stuff, and it's not stuff that really worries me in terms of how we're going to actually go and get that deal done. Even Mikel Antonio, I think, is going to Saudi Arabia as well. Why would he even come to Celtic when somebody's offering him 5 times his salary or whatever? He's over the hill. He's had his best days of scoring 3 goals in 20 games in the EPL. He's not even really been a big player, but he's a handful. There's no doubt about it. And I just don't see moves like that happening. And the Mellon one, the one I singled out, is because I think that I know you were saying, Sean, you don't know exactly what type of player we're trying to sign, but he's in the age category and the type of investment range that we're trying to sign. And if we think that he's a solution at fullback and he's a good attacking fullback, he started as a forward, I think, and then he's kind of dropped back, but he looks quite versatile. And if we think that he's a guy we can develop and buy for 7 million-ish or whatever, and maybe sell for 20-25 million, like some of the guys that have went back out the door, then I'd far rather see that type of signing, obviously. And the average age of the groups come down a lot. Joe Hart's probably doubling it at the moment. I think so. We've got a lot of people in the right sort of age category. Even Starfelt's left. He was maybe in the last couple of years, probably still in his prime, but in the last couple of years, his career and it looks like we're bringing in a guy who's sort of 23. So we do seem to have some form of strategy there in terms of having guys with resale value.
Well, Starfelt, Giacomakis and Juranovic, all in the same age band, and they were all quite happily sold quite quickly, so there's definitely a bit more, there's definitely motivation to sell some of those guys at the right time. And I think the club has found itself too often in a terrible situation to sell or in a terrible contract position with a player or whatever. And it's good to see. Yeah, at least there's been a few of those little moves, and it gives you a little bit of hope. But where I don't have hope is that we're going to really push the boat out on some of these fronts, because there is clearly, if these are the rumours, there's clearly as money to go around. And Stephen's got some great details here for us on some facilities that are getting developed in and around the ground. And I think there's been rumours of this stuff, if not public plans, for a little while for some of it, if not all of it. So yeah, good to see it all kind of detailed there, because I had no idea what it was. So it's all there. But yeah, there we go.
It's good.
With the whole 1 in, 1 out policy thing, the kind of whispers and rumours and feelers that I've caught wind of over the last couple of days, I'm sure you guys have as well, is that maybe Siegrist might be on his way out of the building. So if that was to happen, that activates the whole 1 in, 1 out kind of pendulum swing that we see at Celtic. What kind of goalkeeper do you think they would go and get? Would they go and get a bona fide body and spirit replacement, a number two, or would they finally go and maybe do some of the stuff we've been really pushing for them to do?
Young goalkeeper again. You made a great shout, Quinny. Remember you said about Pander, absolutely outstanding game against, was it Feyenoord, I think, the weekend?
Yeah.
Probably think they got him for like 1 or 2 million or something from Verona, so they're probably looking to actually make some money on him. But I mean, why not? I mean, why not bring in somebody really who is as talented as that Croatia under-21 goalkeeper? Probably cost a few million. Siegrist goes out on loan for a season or moves on. Joe Hart's out of contract next season, and then obviously that you've got a guy. I mean, if he came in and they sat him on the bench behind Joe Hart, I would actually vomit. Like, he's actually good enough to come in and actually play for Celtic just now, I'd have thought. But if there's a plan there to buy him and make him the long-term successor or whatever, then that would be a brilliant shout. That was your shout, Quinny. I'm not taking any credit for that. You mentioned him, but you weren't here, Sean, and I think it was on the podcast we were doing with Hendo, and I'd mentioned like Kavlina. Obviously you could get somebody like that, and I don't think he'd be that expensive either, Nicholas Kavlina, and he, that's the type of goalkeeper that we could go and bring in to at least challenge like Joe Hart. So 13, he had an early leg to go, so that's not a good advertisement for him. Oh, by the way, I'm still in shock at seeing that clip of Barkas. See him diving around like Clark Kent. Jesus, man.
Yeah.
What's happened to him? What has he been?
Rangers were actually linked with Pander.
Were they?
Yeah, we spoke about him a long time ago, Quinny. But yeah, there's plenty of goalkeepers out there that could be fine. The Barkas situation is just simply he plays for a team that actually shots. He has shots on his goal, and that's it. He has to save lots of shots playing for them. At Celtic, you don't. It's
100 last week.
But the people in charge at Celtic clearly don't understand the goalkeeping position, the unique goalkeeping position that Celtic have with a massive drop off domestically to Europe. So, we need a goalkeeper that's an elite shot stopper just to calm the stadium down. It calm fans down, and for fans to just feel relaxed, we need a Boric or a Fraser Foster. I would abandon the whole sweeper keeper stuff, because I just think I just don't think Celtic Park's a place that won't ever be comfortable having a risk-taking goalkeeper. And I think even Brendan Rodgers said something like, I don't want the goalkeeper to be a playmaker. So it's not going to happen. So just get a shot stopper. Get a Nick Olage or something like that from Holland or Netherlands, and just get someone like that in that's young, early 20s, and then just have them for 3-4 years. Yeah. And that's it. You don't have to think about it again if you recruit really well and for the goalkeeper position.
Yeah,
Muric
is very, by the way.
But can he? I mean, can you imagine Muric doing what Muric does at Celtic Park, and people being all right with that?
Aye, well, if we buy him,
dribbling.
I think the problem with Muric is he's probably alone.
Let's get real, Quinny.
What?
Game week 1 of Muric. You think Celtic fans would be forgiven when he inevitably does what he's going to do, which is skin about 3 guys, ping over the top to Kyogo, goal, and then next 5 minutes make some mad blunder? There's no chance Muric would get on.
He is a good shot stopper, though, isn't he?
He's a phenomenal goalkeeper, and he's a unique goalkeeper. But he's a bit like Andrea Onana. He is not good for the hearts of Celtic fans at all, because he is mental. He just makes crazy, fun decisions. He tries to progress the ball as a goalkeeper.
This is why he might be available. They've just signed James Trafford for big money, the England under-21 goalkeeper. And even though he won the league with Burnley last year and he's got like 4 seasons of senior football under his belt, he's benched for this guy who just showed up last season at Bolton on loan.
He's from Man City, isn't he, James Trafford? He's another one that's highly rated. So, I mean, they're just replacing a great goalkeeper with another great goalkeeper. But I just can't see Muric and Celtic being a happy relationship. I think that would just be, give it a couple of weeks and we need a proper goalkeeper, because he's just a nutter. And I like how he plays, but I think he needs to go to a team that's comfortable with having our goalkeeper being a bit of a maverick.
Yeah. I mean, I do think we've still got a bit of a goalie problem as well, though. Like even if you just take it, I mean, it'd be the better game at the weekend.
Exactly. Keeper that can punt it up the park. That is exactly what the majority of fans at Celtic Park want. Punt up the park to Kyogo. So obviously that'll work.
He's out of contract at the end of the season, and he's, even when Rodgers was talking about him, he's made a couple of interesting comments. He was talking about how Joe Hart wants to maximise what he's got left and he's in the tank and everything. It sounded like somebody that was like basically on his last legs or whatever. It's like, he's not that old. I mean, come on, he looks in fairly good shape or whatever. And then he said something about Scott Bain as well, but how Scott Bain's quite modern and good on the ball and stuff like that. He's a fantastic goalkeeper. He was in a great game against Hibs last season and then just conceded like 4 goals or whatever. Like, well, that's all right being good on the ball, but one of your jobs is to keep the ball out of the net. That's one of your jobs. You're at Parkhead, you're playing against a really good team in Champions League. They get through. One of your jobs is to actually make a save. So it is really interesting, but Siegrist has not been on the bench, so there must be something there. He's either got an injury or they're trying to find a way to actually get him out so that they can leave that position more free and get a young guy in or whatever. But I don't think we'll go and sign a goalkeeper and just say Joe Hart's going to be a backup. I think we'll sign somebody that's going to be sort of eased in over the course of the season to move forward, and Joe Hart will say thanks very much for your service. Away to Saudi Arabia, Al Ettifaq, MLS, whatever, Wrexham, like whatever, Move on.
Don't say that. Don't say that.
Move on. Wrexham will be in League One or whatever at that point, so that's kind of pretty much
almost utility.
I mean, we're being a bit harsh, but if you pull up the Joe Hart stats, that like in terms of actual fancy football scoring and all that type of stuff, the last 15 games, he's been absolutely horrid. He's been terrible. He's not even that expensive in Sorare anymore, and he's the Celtic goalkeeper. And the reason is he's hardly had an actual good game of football in the last sort of 15 games. One good game or whatever. Like
2 saves, 1 from inside the box.
Yeah, I mean, he's not facing a lot of shots or whatever, but at the tail end of last season, he was letting in goals that he should have kept out. If at least you say, well, he's conceded a goal today, but he's made a couple of good saves, that's fine.
But the issue with Celtic is that doesn't. You don't get to do that. You don't get to concede a goal and then make a couple of saves. Like a lot of teams are getting 2 shots a game. And they're scoring with one of them and the other one's blazed over the bar. And that's why the hysteria with Barkas just gets so ridiculous so quickly. And the perception of him. Once his perception was he is, he can't save anything, he's this, he's that, and that all that was moulded. He was done. He was never going to have a good career at Celtic. He was the Greek number 1. We signed the Greek number 1 keeper and he was very good against us at Athens, but we got a good 10 shots into him where he had to actually make saves. And we've found long-term data, Barkas isn't a particularly good shot stopper. He's very good at other things like claiming crosses and good with the ball at his feet, those kinds of things. So again, perception is pretty much everything, and sentiment, and it leads us to believe things are good or they're bad. And so the goalkeeper position has to be someone that is going to make people feel really comfortable, like Boric, and even Boric at times was crazy, but like Foster's probably the perfect example. People just never really questioned him ever because he made so many important saves. And those big moments were so often for him that people just never even questioned the games where he probably did concede more goals than he should have, or he probably did, did have poor positioning, or he wasn't really doing his job properly. But we need a goalkeeper that has big moments in him. And the last time we had that was Foster, and obviously Boric. We didn't have it with Gordon at all. Gordon was a bit of a nightmare at Celtic, particularly in Europe. So it's a really important position that we need to get right. And it has to be a younger guy that we give the keys to for a while. And I think Olic or Pandur or someone like that would be terrific. I really hope it happens, actually. I think it's the one key area that the swing can be really, really decisive in the domestic title race. The swing from Hart to someone who has a real positive influence in the team in goals. I don't think it can be ignored for another season.
Yeah, maybe the pendulum is swinging on Instagram. Stephen Ray's doing the investigative work for us, which is brilliant to see. So yeah, but yeah, so the goalkeeper one I'm nervous about. A lot of the names we spoke about so far are ones that I would be excited about, I'd be happy about, no two ways about it. But the worry is, it is like another Seagrass type or something like that. Like it's just another guy that's been. I know we got Seagrass from Dundee United, right? But maybe it's a guy that's like the number one goalkeeper for a team in Poland, or the number one goalkeeper at a team in Hungary, or something like that. It's just something that's just a wee bit too far off the beaten track. But it's like, guys, come on, like, we're playing in the group stages of the Champions League, and some of these guys we're even talking about don't have Champions League experience, so they don't pass the test on this front particularly. But like, when we're looking at that, there has to be people that have the ability to have those big moments and to be able to produce, and yeah, that's the number one criteria above all else, is absolutely the metal of it. Because Foster is an actual goalkeeper. Like the comment I put on screen, every fan felt comfortable. You guys said it really well as well. But Fraser Foster, no one argued about the goalkeeper ever. Just like, how long can we keep him for? Don't let him go.
And I think some clubs just need that, because some clubs just have different expectations on what a goalkeeper should be. And we should basically never be conceding ever in the eyes of some people when we play at home, particularly. So it's a tough position to recruit. It's definitely a difficult one. I think even the kind of more smart boardrooms around Europe would kind of struggle to really nail this position for a club like Celtic. But there are guys out there, and we see them week in, week out in Sorare. We get to watch them because we're following different teams. So they are there.
Watch the Barcelona game. My big guy, big Sorare, the wall. Fraser Foster-esque, you might say.
That guy Bernd Leno, plays for Fulham?
Yes.
He's got like the most ridiculous goals prevented stats. Like, go and look at him and Sorare. His Sorare will be amazing. He's playing for Fulham, which are not a particularly good team for a Sorare. Go and look at his, because he gets so many shots on his goal. Mm-hmm. So his goals prevented is so high. He gets so many saves. So he kind of balances out the clean sheet bonus on Sorare just by virtue of playing for Fulham. So he's a really good goalkeeper to have. So a Bernd Leno would be a good keeper for a Celtic, because look at that. For playing for Fulham, those numbers is astonishing.
Yeah.
So it'd have to be someone like that if we're going down that shot stopper route. It has to be someone as good as Leno. That's unbelievable. I didn't know he was that good on Sorare.
His peaks are mad.
But if he went to a better team, he wouldn't have the ability to gain as many points. And how that translates to real life football is he wouldn't have the ability at Celtic to really show how good a shot stopper he is week in, week out, because St Johnstone are going to come to town. They're going to park the bus, and there's going to be one big moment in the game, and he needs to be decisive in that moment. That's a different dynamic for a goalkeeper.
Audrey Lunan, what do we think about that?
I don't know enough about him.
I don't think he's going to come to Celtic, to be honest, is he? I mean, obviously they came out and said, "Oh, we really trust Lunan after Courtois got crocked," and then 2 days later, Kepa Arrizabalaga, whatever you call him, I don't know how you pronounce that, but he's signed from Chelsea on loan, and so obviously it's a clean sheet, but he's not going to play, is he? Because they've signed Kepa, so I don't think we would get somebody like him, but there's guys like him. I would say that Pandur is, to all intents and purposes, similar level of ability to somebody like Lunan. It's just that Lunan's found his way to a big club. So, these guys are there, and you see all the time, you get guys and they move on. And we used to buy like Jeremy Doku at the start of Sorare, and now Doku's been linked with Man City. So when he goes to Man City, people will be like, but realistically, he was a guy who was available to buy from Anderlecht or whatever, like about a year and a half ago.
Unbelievable player, Doku.
Brilliant.
I mean, or just go the very, very, very highly rated Aberdeen youth goalkeeper, Murray Johnson. You just go and buy him, stick him on the bench, make him number 2 behind Hart. Just believe in his potential and his height. You get a homegrown box ticked. I don't think you can do that at Celtic. People just wouldn't be comfortable with that proposition, which I think is unfortunate, because that would make a lot of sense economically. Just buy someone who is a potential wonder kid like Murray Johnson. I think he's on loan to Queen of the South. I think he's only 17 or 18, which is pretty good that he's actually going to be, I assume, going to be number 1 for Queen of the South. So you could do something like that. But again, it's just a tricky position. Celtic are a really tricky club and a tricky fan base to keep happy as well. So yeah, it really is a tough one.
Expectations are high.
Yes.
Expectations are high, and this is a summer, but where expectations should be high, and I think over the last 2 or 3 weeks we spoke quite a lot about how we're excited about the Champions League, but going forward, like, this is the last time we're going to see this version of it, and then we're going to be into some sort of like new kind of European League-ish kind of future with it all, which will probably benefit us pretty greatly, but we want to see those moves, like, it's this progressive thing that we keep talking about in terms of it's the being smart, it's making transfers. Because again, like a goalkeeper, you look at the values of some of these guys at the top end, you can charge way more for a goalkeeper in some instances, depending on the situation, than you can any other player. There's not been too many clubs really bent over the barrel this transfer window for goalkeepers, but we have seen, phenomenal transfer fees for clubs of all sizes to get the right goalkeeper in when they need it. There's also a lot of goalkeepers in important clubs locked up at the moment, but if we had a goalkeeper that really came good in a big way on the big stage for us, then that's a big checkbook waiting to happen.
I think another dynamic that's happening as well in the kind of wider market is Saudi Arabia is just pinching a lot of number 1s now. So Bono from Sevilla, he's going to Saudi Arabia. So Sevilla now have to fill their number 1 slot. So it's like a carousel. You got really injured at Ajax, but apparently really was going to Bayern Munich. You have all these things, so it's not going to be easy just to go and get, like, Pandur's probably now on the list of Sevilla. So you're now competing with a club that is in a better league and has more resources than you. Whereas because their goalkeepers are now have this new market that wants them, which is Saudi Arabia, that didn't exist 6 months to a year ago. So it's complicated. Livakovic is a keeper that we could, it's just going to be really tough for us to compete with Turkey. But now you're competing with Saudi Arabia as well. So it might not even be feasible to get these guys, because the likes of Sevilla, possibly Liverpool, having to replace their goalkeepers. And it has a chain effect, doesn't it? It has a chain effect, though. And you see how Duath, Gurna Duath, or whatever, the guy at Salzburg, the young central midfielder, so Brighton have sold Caicedo to Chelsea. Instantly, Brighton are trying to get Gurna Duath from Salzburg.
Yep.
So you see the chain reaction in motion, and then Salzburg are going to have to replace him with, whoever they've got in their conveyor belt. So tricky conditions to actually, get the right goalkeeper in, or get the right player at all in at this moment in time for Celtic. I think Saudi Arabia has just really changed the whole landscape of European football at the moment, because the big clubs are just getting poached.
I don't think it's as hard as you think, but in terms of actually identifying them, obviously you look at Brighton and stuff and you think their recruitment process is absolutely brilliant, but like if you were just actually fired up UEFA TV and watched the under-21s over the summer, you would have seen talent all over the place there, and a lot of them were big names like Cherky and guys that we're all aware of, but there's a couple of guys there that started to stand out or look good that you hadn't heard of before or were in squads and you take notice of. So like that's the thing with football, there is talent coming through, and I like the overall strategy of trying to identify these guys. And come back to Merlin, that's a guy I would quite like us to see us sign, because I'd be excited by that. I know him, I know that he's shown something so far. He might be a bit raw or whatever, but he's definitely got potential. He's an attacking fullback. You could maybe say to Bernabei, well, if you're going to sleep in for all the team meetings, bugger off, away back to Argentina, whatever, away to Saudi Arabia, who cares, and have Greg Taylor there as a guy who will sit in the bench and won't have his face tripping him all the time or whatever. He'll play a part in the squad, and this guy maybe could play a lot of the attack-minded games or whatever. It's just a process of obviously regenerating the squad. So...
yeah, no, I'm with you on that.
Anyway, I'm going to go soon because I do have 2-star rares to open, so I'm going to head off at this point. You guys can continue if you want, but my arse is making buttons now. Excuse my language.
As long as you're here, I'm here. You'll be surprised how long I'm here.
Well, there'll be no action. There'll be no SO5 action for us this midweek or this weekend, with it being Kelly. I think the manager will probably take this opportunity to rotate a bunch of players, so we'll be back in action next week anyway. But when we're back next week, we'll be looking down the barrel again of putting some teams together and going after it all again. McBride, good luck with your rewards, mate.
Thanks very much.
Excited. So happy for you. So happy for you.
It's running above average for 2.5 years. It's absolutely magic. See you later, guys. Cheers.
See you later, mate.
That feels like a joke that I'm not aware of or something. I'm not sure. An inside joke between you two. He's doing all right, McBride. He does all right, doesn't he? But, I think we're pretty much at the end. I don't think we're too far away from the end of our tether anyway. The main things we were here to knock around was obviously the scores we had at the weekend. I've got some rewards this weekend, but nothing Celtic related, unfortunately, with the lack of clean sheet. And transfer
really
business as well.
Celtic really didn't. The attackers missed too many big chances as well for the attackers to have been doing, putting in some really, really, really big scores. So, yeah, it was a wee bit disappointing. I think we should have got more points on our little JPEGs that no one that's watching this cares about. The reason why we're actually here. But yeah, it was... when's the next Celtic game? The next actual scoreable match in Sorare? Is it 2 weeks from now? St Johnstone?
Yeah.
Well...
So it'll be a sonker.
And when do the new cards come out, Quinny? When does the new stuff start getting minted?
Well, new cards should be, I would hope, I think September is when everything's going to go off, if you know what I mean, in terms of all the plans that they've got for like new season beginnings, it feels like. Because I heard them saying somewhere at some point, I forget where exactly at this moment, but they were lining up with like the launch of like the new FIFA and other football games, and they normally all come out after the transfer window, because then players are all at clubs and that kind of thing's all ironed out. So I think maybe a couple of weeks away from that.
What are your thoughts? There's a comment there. Steve Robbins 1980 says nothing to worry about here. Celtic will be fine. Everyone panicking over nothing like every year. Do you think that's unfair?
It's not panicking. It's just as a fan, like I've always been quite ambitious for the team, and you always think, the club could have tried to do something a bit more ambitious and push on. And it's always in these crossroads situations is where the club normally, in my experience, maybe don't push the boat out. So it's not necessarily panicking. It's just more like, please push the boat out. There's money there. Brendan Rodgers is in town. What a team we've got already. Just push the boat out, you know. So it's not really panicking. I'm sure I'm positive we're still going to like win the league and all the rest of it. I've watched Rangers play once in the league and once in Europe, and they're definitely better with a few of the players that they've picked up. But I don't. It doesn't change my opinion on our perspective. It's the Champions League and it's moving forward and all that other stuff. So I wouldn't categorise it as panicking. I hope you don't either. Anyone watching, but Stephen Robbins, sorry mate, but
I don't think it's
panic.
I think maybe some people are just general, but I think it's just a wee bit of disappointment, frustration that it just appears. But I don't think people are really approaching it from the right angle, which is it's the same brains, it's the same minds, it's the same level of problem solver and vision for 20 years. That's the problem. Those are the people that make the key decisions, and it's the same people for 20 years. And their trend in Europe is abysmal. So I don't think it really is about signing players and doing this and doing that. I think it's about the people who actually run and control the club and make those decisions. I just don't think they're capable of taking us to the next level. And I think 2 decades is a long enough sample size. I don't know, maybe do we need another decade, Quinny, of not winning a knockout tie in Europe?
No, I definitely don't need that in my life.
Exactly.
I
don't need it in my life. And I think
I would really enjoy battering people again.
Well, I would absolutely love it. I'd like to. Exactly. That would be. It's not such a preposterous thing to want, and I think Celtic clearly have the resources to do it, and I think they've clearly told a lot of fibs and started a lot of rumours as to why Celtic don't. Like Dermot Desmond saying, the players, it's a psychological thing. It's not psychological, Dermot. You're playing whatever age Scott Brown in Europe and against the best attacking transition teams in the world. That's why. I mean, it's just like, oh my God, any excuse other than don't think the guys that are planning the long term of this club are really up to it. So it's hard when you're seeing all the transfer news and all the people getting linked and all that, and you just think,
You know, I don't want to take us on a mad tangent, right? But part of the problem, I think, with the reason we've probably held on to that, maybe what me and you think is the bad end of that strategy that we've seen over the past longer, like we're talking about 10, 20 years, all that kind of stuff, and then we would like this, because some of them have been moderately successful. Like Kelvin Wilson was brilliant for a wee bit, and Gary Hooper has been one of the best strikers I think we've picked up. And these guys are bottom end championship, top end League One. I love Hooper. But anyway,
they were all right.
When you get those wee bits of success, they think, oh, it can be done, you know. And even Matt O'Reilly, you get him at MK Dons, maybe it just feeds him a wee bit of, oh, it can be done, you know. And
there's great success. There's great success stories, and there's also really, really bad failures.
True.
And I just wish there would be maybe a little bit more accountability for the people who are making the key decisions. And I think that accountability is lacking for those people. And I think we've seen it most in the 2021 season. You know, when everything went 10 in a row, crumbled and everything. I think that's where we've seen it most. And they just knew that if they just sat and waited it out and blamed everything like COVID and psychology and all this stuff, that would get them through, and it did. Because ultimately there's no real mechanism for fans and the shareholders, or the shareholders that aren't part of a group, to actually take action and regain some kind of control and hold the board accountable, which is why I like is it Celtic Trust or something like that, has a kind of good idea of how you get to actually, if you've got 5% of shares and we've got a collective body here, we can at least pose some questions and hold people accountable. Because right now they've just got control and they can just do what they want, no accountability. They'll take absolute credit for all the successes, the Virgil van Dijks and all that. See, when it comes to us getting beat or us really losing badly, they're not there to take any accountability. Go and look at what they say. This isn't that. You know, this is what the words that come out of their mouth. So yeah, I don't want another decade of downtrending. I want Celtic Park to be a fortress, and I want us to be a team that people really don't like playing. And I think Brendan Rodgers as a manager can do that, but I think we need a reshuffle, and we need some better problem solvers and people that are a bit more open to, you know, us being a different kind of Celtic, a different kind of organisation.
Well, I hope that's kind of going on. When you hear Brendan saying in pre-season, brand Celtic, you know, part of brand Celtic is the European fortress, Parkhead, and part of that is the green and white hoops, attacking football. The fans, of course, is a huge part. It is the biggest part, one of the biggest parts, probably the best way of putting it, of brand Celtic, you know, is the fan base and the atmosphere and all that stuff that goes along with it. So if they want to line their pockets and they want to do all this stuff, then it is one of these, you know, you kind of put the cart before the horse kind of situation, you know. So let's hope that, that's all. Again, we spoke about this last week. You'd like to think everyone that works there is trying their bloody best and is knocking their pan in. So it's just then it's the direction that people get pushed into, and it's the decisions on the fork in the road. Those are the ones that, you know.
There's a great quote in one of these books I'd read, and I think it was like a Ralph Rangnick kind of, you know, philosophy, and it was basically saying you can make up for a lack of talent, you know, but when it comes to, you can't make up for a lack of strategy. Strategy is everything, and I would say that a 2-decade trend is enough for us to kind of come to the conclusion that people that have got a stranglehold of the key footballing decisions can't compete with the other clubs in Europe. And they can tell us it's a TV deal. They can tell us it's the league. Oh, the league's terrible, blah, blah, blah. I just happen to think they're just not really cut out for it. And they've monopolised that boardroom so they can just hold power forever and ever. And some of the younger fans are just getting a bit disillusioned because we've never had a golden age in Europe for us to really. I mean, we had 2000 and, well, in fairness, no, early 2000s, Martin O'Neill.
Yeah.
I was a kid for that. When that
Strachan was good as well. Strachan was good.
But again, you know, we were competing, and I know a lot of clubs weren't really using data and weren't really using a lot of sophisticated ways of playing the game. It was definitely more, you know, it wasn't as sophisticated as it is now. So it is more difficult now. But we have stood still in that regard for a good, you know, 20 years now, and we need to get we need to get moving, man. We need to get involved. We need to get to the party and start. Just pack a team with Dies and Maedas. Just clone 11 Dies and Maedas. Just press. Just have a PPDA, a passing pair defensive action of 1 every game. Just 90 minutes of chasing.
Running.
But yeah, man, I just want to see us in Europe one more time. Really, really taking it to Europe, and just you know, that night in Boa Vista. I mean, just those moments, just.
Yeah.
And I think when people say fans are panicking or they're entitled, it's not even entitlement. Some fans, those European nights are just, we seriously miss winning and being successful in them, and it's the toughest thing to do at the club. And I think the easiest thing to do is just to win the league, because as we know, 90% of the league is determined by salary, and lo and behold, we have an enormous salary advantage over the rest of the league, with the exception of the evil team.
The bad guys.
The bad guys. I don't know where they get their salary money from, but they get it. So
they've definitely been selling some souls, I think, or something. I don't know, but
pentagrams. Yeah, they've definitely sacrificed a good few people, drawn a lot of pentagrams in recent years. My God.
On that note, guys, hope you've had good fun. It's been a great one, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Pleasure, Sean. Take care, mate.
See you, Quinny. Take care, mate.